Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to the Monday, April 14th, 2014 edition of Intelligence Report with AVFM and Shrink4Men.com. I am, as usual, Dean Esmay, Operations Manager at A Voice for Men. Also joining me with her normal sparkly wit is the lovely Dr. Tara Palmatier. Say hello, Dr. T.
Hello, everyone.
And the beloved and revered overlord of all things, evil and cuddly, Mr. Paul Elam. Say hello, Paul.
Hi, everybody, and I want to start things out by objecting and tell you, as a man, I somewhat resent Tara always being introduced first on this show, but I won't make a big stinky scene about it because I'm not a whiny victim. I just wanted to say it. Now I feel better.
Yeah. As a man, I feel threatened.
We're going to call the wambulance.
Man, I feel threatened that you challenged me on that. My manhood has been called into question, in fact. All right, anyway. So we have three stories that we're going to talk about here. There's a fourth story I wanted to get in, but I think we'll wait till next week. The Ben Radford saga, where we've been falsely accused, but didn't have time to run that, completely finish that story. So we have three stories we kind of want to talk about today. The first one is a rather upsetting story, and not upsetting for the normal reasons that you would find it upset. A disabled boy, it's not clear to me what his disability is, nor does it matter, but in Pennsylvania, a boy, it looks like he was probably autistic, I'm not sure, it doesn't matter, again, was getting bullied and chose to do what we at AVFM always tell people to do, which is to always be recording. And he recorded his bullies seriously, horrifically harassing him, talking about things like pulling down his pants and calling him names and throwing things and laughing at him, etc. And I'm watching, reading, you're hearing all this, and I'm thinking, okay, but he recorded it, right? And good, now the bullies will get their comeuppance because they can't hide. School officials, well, one school official was a hero because she submitted the evidence and apparently made a transcript of the bullying for the record. And what did the school officials do with that? They, A, erased the recording, and B, called the police and had the child arrested on felony wiretapping charges. To which I'm just rendered speechless. This is a 15-year-old boy who was recording for his own security purposes. What the fuck is wrong with these school officials, and what the fuck is wrong with these cops? I don't even. Somebody say something, because I'm speechless. I can't believe it.
I had a hard time. I really had a large, just what the fuck, shock moment, even though I knew this was coming, just hearing you saying it. I mean, I read the story, and I know that, one, they deleted the recording, which, one, if you're going to charge him with illegal wiretapping, however the hell they got to that notion, wouldn't that recording have been evidence that he did it? I mean, and of course, not that I think he should be charged with wiretapping for recording, and I don't even know how you get to wiretapping by making an audio recording of what people are doing to you, but I'm sure the police there have figured out in some way. But also, now we are, in our society, we have gone to the place where we're going to legally persecute and prosecute mentally disabled boys for trying to protect themselves from bullies. I mean, what the fuck am I supposed to say? about this? I mean, any outrage that I express emotionally is going to be over the top. It's going to end up being inappropriate. Any kind of commentary seems empty and vacuous. What do you say about a culture where this is even a possible reality in the world? I don't know. It's just, I mean, we're losing our marbles entirely as a culture. And, you know, we've got boys getting arrested for playing doctor. We've got boys getting arrested for pretending to, or getting kicked out of school for pretending to have a bow and arrow, for kicked out of school for calling their teacher cute, kicked out of school for hugging their teacher, accused of sexual assault, accused of sexual harassment at 6 years old. And now we've got a 15-year-old mentally disabled boy who the police are going to play Mary Kellett with in order to get him on, as though he were tapping into people's phones simply for trying to protect himself. I don't know what to say to this. I don't have a clue.
I remember when I was younger, let's say 20 years ago, I was very concerned about the idea that privacy was going to weigh in. We would become so-called a universal surveillance society, where you couldn't go anywhere without being on tape, and I was afraid of that. The more I've learned over the years, the more I've been like, you know what, especially, really anybody, but especially for young men, or men in general, it's like the best defense that we have. It's the best defense any young man could have, or anything, whether it's a false allegation of rape, false allegation of violence, a false allegation of anything, or you're being bullied and you need to be able to prove it. We have a saying on AVFM of always be recording. Now I have to look at the state of Pennsylvania and say, well, always be recording in order to protect yourself, except in Pennsylvania, where they will put you in jail for trying to defend you.
Pennsylvania is a two-party state. There are one-party states and there are two-party states. What this means is, in a one-party state, as long as you are part of the conversation, you do not have to notify nor obtain whoever else you're communicating with their permission to record them. In a two-party state, you must A, notify the other person or people that they're being recorded, and you may not need their permission if it's in a public space. I think that varies state to state, but I know Pennsylvania is a two-party state because I've had clients who have resided there who got into trouble for recording their wives' and girlfriends' abusive rampages.
I've had to do a 180. I used to be afraid of the privacy thing, but fuck all, man. I mean, I feel like if it's a matter of personal security and personal safety, and that's the reason that you're recording it, that ought to be written into a law as a right that you have. This kid was defending himself and trying to bring proof, and they're going to arrest him.
I wasn't saying I agreed with the law. I'm just saying that
I know.
the law. So they may very well technically.
All right.
He may be guilty of recording his bullies without their permission.
Call out. Yeah.
When it's self-defense and a crime is being committed, I think that law needs to be revisited. This is just insanity.
How can a school not be a public space? Here's what I'll say. Call out to the Pennsylvania legislature. Change this damn law. Name the law after this kid, because the law is an ass here. This kid was defending himself from being slapped around, name-called, having his pants pulled down, and all that, and all he was doing was trying to prove what they were doing to him.
And I'll bet you dollars to donuts.
After him.
What really gets me about this, in particularly the legal sense, is it illegal in Pennsylvania for stores to run video surveillance to help prevent shoplifting? Is it illegal for people to have security cameras?
They have signs posted that there are surveillance cameras. I know this. I had a client in particular who he was only allowed to keep a camera in his bedroom. That was the one room in the house that the judge told the wife she was not allowed to enter, and that he had a camera going in there, and the other way he could get around it was by posting signs on his property that it was under surveillance.
Well, police run dashboard cams all the time, and I know they do it in Pennsylvania
But they're the cops. They can do the cops can do what they want to do. Different set of rules.
Oh yes, yes. I'm sorry. What was I thinking? I was just thinking of us commoners. You know, on a more global aspect of this subject, because again, I can't even get into the insanity of what happened to this boy and what they're doing as a result of it. But I remember Dr. T saying, and I think it was a couple of years ago, and hoping she might remember it, that in some places where they had put up video surveillance, where they expected this to be some big crime deterrent, what they actually found was that the cameras were confirming that the people
the alibis of the falsely accused. Yeah, this is
especially women. What was that about, Tara?
Okay, when you launched registerher.com a few years back, I was one of the volunteers to cull stories from the news, the internet news publications, and I found story after story in the UK papers about how men were proved innocent of false allegations of sexual assault and rape because they had the women on the CCTV cameras. Basically, it was consensual. So instead of incriminating these men, it incriminated their false accusers, which I just thought was brilliant.
I tell you, there was a story. I'll go ahead and add these to the low bar, but they're both in the AVFM hot link section, the new AVFM hot link section, of a cabbie who got a false rape allegation from two women who didn't want to pay their fare, and whoops for them, he had them on tape making that threat. So they're in trouble, and he's suing, and good for him. There's also a rather amazing one that happened in my neck of the woods. I'll make sure to get it into the low bar after we're done here. Of a woman gets into a fight. She gets a fat lip or something like that. You know, she's rather beaten up, and it's a fight that she clearly started with another woman, and another woman beat the crap out of her. Looks like she started it. Whatever. It was an altercation between two females. She calls the police and said some strange man beat her up. And the problem was the tape clearly showed she knew her attacker, and her attacker was a woman. I didn't add this to the story. I should have thought of it, but it's interesting how when we do have surveillance going on, we wind up finding things out about false accusers. I don't even know what this woman was thinking to say, I was attacked by a man. Why wouldn't she accuse the woman who actually attacked her? No, it had to be some guy, because guys are just like that, I guess.
Who knows? Maybe she could have gotten some money from the state or the authorities for being the victim of male violence, or she would have gotten more sympathy. Who knows? Who knows? I mean, I'm sure there was a reason she did it, messed up and twisted, but there usually is some type of method in their madness.
And obviously, by the way, this was a case of toxic or hegemonic femininity. Folks, we need to change what it means to be a woman.
That's right. That's right. Because hegemonic toxic femininity is obviously what causes violence in our society. Yes, we're being sarcastic, somewhat. Yeah, just find some dude to blame. You go watch that tape. I'm going to get it into the low bar. It happened in my neck of the woods here in Michigan, and you clearly see her get into a fight with another woman. There's just no question. I guess you can argue who started it or who started it.
Maybe she meant that the other woman threw a punch like a dude.
Yeah, maybe that was it.
Well, and this is nothing new. You know, if you remember the Heidi Jones story from New York, it was some Mexicans that were after her that never existed, and Susan Smith, who murdered her children in Texas. It was a couple of black guys. I mean, and now I guess we progressed to
some Puerto Rican guy, I think it was.
We don't need racial tags anymore.
Was his name Apollo?
I'm sorry?
It was the Puerto Rican man's name Apollo. It's back to that woman who, something O'Dowd, who allegedly sexually harassed anyway, never mind.
Unrelated
Tangential
story,
reference.
So I don't know. I know there's a new technology coming out that's finally going to start being available tomorrow called Google Glass. There's a bunch of people who are against it, but I'm actually hoping it pushes us into a society like this. It's basically a device that's going to either attach to glasses you already have and kind of sit up here in the corner, or you can get just a pair of basic glasses and clip it onto there, that, you know, non-prescription glasses. And not only will you be able to look up and see a little computer display to do things like get directions or check your mail or whatever, and then you look back and you're fine down here, but it attaches to your phone and you can do it to record whatever you're looking at. And I'm sorry, I used to be real concerned about privacy, but now I want the protection. I really do, of being able to walk out around wherever I am and be able to start recording, because it's clear what can happen to you, especially if you're male, if you're not. So.
And the evidence would weigh. And while I'm a person that really errs on the side of privacy, I do believe in that. At the same time, I can't ignore the reality of what Dr. T was talking about in her investigation of cases for Register Her, and of what turns out so many times for these cab drivers and other people. The fact that the matter is that always be recording. It works for men. It does. I mean, there's very compelling reason to think that recording everything in your life might just save your ass at some point. And if you can do that on an ongoing basis, I wouldn't advise against it.
When you are guilty until proven innocent, which is where men so frequently are in this society, what other alternative is there? And you know what? I know so many people who think we're hyperbolic when we talk that way. Come talk to us about some of the cases we've dealt with. It's truly horrendous. All right, I'm going to repeat my call out to people in Pennsylvania to demand that their legislature change the laws and allow recording for self-defense purposes like this.
I think it's in Canada. It might vary from province to province, but what is, from my understanding from Canadian clients, is that if the safety of a minor is involved, you don't need anybody's permission. If a child is being abused or you suspect it, then you can record regardless of whether or not one party is recording where you live. But again, I'm not a lawyer, so if you're in Canada, double check that with your attorney. But you know, to me, I think that's sane. If you're documenting a crime in process, then whatever the state restrictions are should be off the table. And that kid was being bullied, you know. So I think what he did was absolutely right, and shame on the Pennsylvania Police Department that is trying to prosecute this kid for protecting himself. Shame on you.
And just to be pedantic, Tara, sit up about an inch because we can't see your chin. Okay. Anyway, all right. I think otherwise we've said all we can, except I'm going to repeat. If you live in Pennsylvania, please write your state legislatures about this, because this is just not acceptable. Next story we have, I'm going to blame on Tara. Tara wanted it. I didn't want to touch it.
You did it.
Yes, you did.
Blame her. Blame her. A feminist activist has been arrested for raping her wife in California, I believe, in San Francisco. I'm not sure. This is reporting from SF Gate, which is in San Francisco. As per usual, the rape shield laws apparently are working. We don't have the name of the wife who was allegedly raped, but we do have the name of the wife who did the raping, one Dana Contreras. Now, this just...
Dana McCallum.
But whose legal name is Dana Contreras, according to this. But goes by Dana McCallum. Okay. All right. Well, there are so many layers to this story, I don't know where to begin. Take it away, Dr. T.
Okay. Well, Dana McCallum Contreras is a transgendered woman, was once a man, had a penis at some point, obviously. It's not clear from the news stories I read whether or not she finished whatever the surgeries are that you need to completely become a woman, but the article did state that in California, in order for it to be considered rape, that it needs to be a penetration of the vagina with a penis. So,
is it that explicit, or can't
yes,
objects be used?
Yes, no, it was penile, which I didn't know was a word, but maybe it isn't. I thought it was penal. So apparently they had separated, but they were still having a sexual relationship, according to the article I read. And wouldn't you know it, the rape allegations occurred just about the same time Ms. McCallum Contreras, that her stock interests in Twitter vested, and she was about to come into a really large sum of Twitter dollars. They live in a condo. Police have evidence from neighbors, including there were 4 teenage children residing in the condo with them. There were no reports of a struggle, hearing sounds of a struggle or a fight. They said they heard the word "no" from inside the room that the couple were in. McCallum's own attorney released a public statement basically saying that, you know, of course this didn't happen, and it's happening because the estranged wife wants to get her hands on the money.
Well,
which is something that I have not heard an attorney for a man who is the victim of this type of allegation state. At least, I mean, perhaps attorneys have, but I have not read that. Usually they're very careful not to try to publicly vilify the rape accuser.
Well, they should be less afraid to do so. I am extraordinarily tempted to gloat here. This is a feminist who stands accused, a feminist who is not protected by the rape shield laws, so we get to know her name, not her accuser's name. She supposedly writes about women in technology and oppression of women and trans women's rights, and now she's getting bit on the ass by the same presumption of guilt and rape shield laws that have been used against men for years. So I'm tempted to go out there to hashtag I believe her and
yeah,
say
well, but it also
obviously guilty. But in fact, she's, you know, in reality, in principle, she is due to every presumption of innocence that anybody else is. I just can't. I'm having a hard time being sympathetic, because feminist advocacy in this area is so hateful and sexist and disgusting.
I can extend my sympathies to anybody that is, and I don't care who they are, that is subject to the impact of allegations and the way that they're handled in our media and in our criminal courts. Their orientation I could care less about. I do have to laugh at the irony of a feminist activist advocate getting bit on the ass in this way, but I'm not laughing at the problem. The only other thing that I can add is that Nile is not a river in Egypt.
Yeah, it's ironically, the very fact that it's a trans woman, it's a woman and a feminist, might lead to some awareness raising, but I don't think so. I actually suspect, especially the RadFem establishment, will turn on Dana. I suspect other feminists will not want to touch it with a 10-foot pole, because they're afraid of all the implications that it has. I didn't want to touch it just because I'm like, this is complicated, but really it should be. It's something feminists ought to be addressing within their own rank. There's a lot of transphobics in their ranks. There's a lot of hypocrisy in their ranks. We actually know that in terms of domestic violence, woman-on-woman violence is more common than man-on-woman violence or woman-on-man violence. Not to a great degree, not that every lesbian relationship is violent, not by a long shot, but feminist hypocrisy in this area goes in so many levels, I don't know where to start.
Dean, let's reiterate that for just a second, and not because we're talking about huge numbers, but because we're dedicated to understanding the nature of problems like violence in the relationships to begin with. When you look at the incidents, I've said this before and I'll say it again, when you look at the incidents of violence in a relationship, the more women are involved, the more violent the relationship is likely to be. The least frequent amount of domestic violence is found in gay male couples. The next one down on the list is heterosexual couples, and the most frequently violent relationships are lesbian women. That is the and should be shocking and addressed within the feminist community, but of course they're not, and if they do, they're going to blame the patriarchy on it. And that's what I'll assert about what will eventually happen with this. If there is any feminist bloggers or talking heads or pontificators out there that are going to actually address this case, I'll lay you dollars to donuts they figure out in the end why it's somehow men's fault.
Right, or the worst of them will say, well, because Dane is ultimately a man, not a real woman.
Yeah.
That's the kind of hateful shit they'll say, and the hypocrisy will be laid bare. Yeah, and Erin, I invoke her a lot. That's because I do a radio show over there every 2 weeks. She talked about how when she opened the first women's shelter back in the 70s, she she was first shocked to find out that most women in violent relationships were violent themselves. B, the lesbians she's encountered sometimes were very violent, and the gay movement was getting its legs in the 70s, and she talked to more than one lesbian who was in a violent relationship and tried to get feminists even then to say, well, if it's all about patriarchy, what about these violent women, these lesbian relationships where they're beating the crap out of each other? What about that? And it's just like the words did not even penetrate, like the question hadn't even been asked. And it's like it's been that way for 40 years since then. We're not supposed to ask that.
When at the domestic violence shelter I worked at, when I can remember one of the trainers summing up as well, it's because the female who's battering is taking on the role of the man.
Of course, that's what it is. That's of course, because nothing else would make any sense.
Because violence itself has a gender.
That's right. Violence is male. That's what we're supposed to come away with. Yes, I'm going to repeat again what was already said. We did not just say that all lesbians are violent or even most lesbians are violent. No, most people aren't violent. There is just a rate there that's been well established for decades. And it is as Paul stated it. And if we're going to treat domestic violence seriously, we've got to get away from idiot, pseudoscientific garbage like patriarchy and men's violence toward women. It's a human problem, God damn it. Right. Anything else you wanted to say about this particular case?
No, I find it interesting on a number of levels, so that's why I submitted it for today.
it's extraordinarily meta, isn't it? It's like, at what level do you want to have that discussion of this case? We have been talking about this case, and I am very glad that we're through.
As I said to Paul the other day, my guess is that the blame will be placed on the person who has the most money and used to have a penis.
Probably. I hope not. I hope she comes out swinging.
Mm-hmm.
I really do, and I think more men need to come out swinging. And someone will take that one out of context.
Futrell just got a gift.
Just got a quote. Yeah, just got a quote mine. Come out swinging in the media. Seriously, it's no lawyer likes this, but in point of fact, try this shit in the court of public opinion, because in the regular courts, if you're the accused, you're not going to win most of the time. Try it in the court of public opinion. People need to realize women can be violent and women do lie, just like men can be violent and men do lie. Oh my God. Okay, now, moving on, we have a story in the state of Maine. Actually, a story of Voice for Men has been on from the very beginning. I would guess that we've been covering this story for 2 years at least.
Try 5.
Oh boy. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's just, what is the latest? What's the latest news in Maine, Paul? First, do we need to tell people who Vladek Filler and Mary Kellett are, real quick?
Yes, and if you need to, fast forward this video 90 seconds while I give background, because some of you may have heard this a few times, but it's important to paint the entire picture here. For some time in Maine, in Ellsworth, where the prosecutor's office for Hancock and Washington County, Maine, there is a prosecutor's office run by one Carletta Bassano. In her employ there is a prosecutor named Mary Kellett, who is actually quite a remarkable individual. She managed to find, for a long, long period of time, one rapist a week in a community of 60,000. Not only find them, but prosecute them, which is, I mean, if Sherlock Holmes would be absolutely dumbstruck with envy if he could match Mary Kellett's investigative skills and her ability. Well, let's stop right there, because most of her cases were tossed. She got a handful of convictions. Her prosecutorial record is abysmal, because literally she's prosecuting anything in jeans. Anything with a finger pointed at it. If it happened to be male, she would take the case and go to extremes. Well, as frequently happens when you conduct yourself this way, she eventually prosecuted the wrong man, one Vladek Filler, who was totally innocent of the charges against him. He was accused of sexually assaulting his wife, which he did not do. She took him to trial and got him briefly convicted before they made their case that she had misled the jury, that she had withheld exculpatory evidence, that she had instructed police to not respond to defense subpoenas, that she had violated several other canons and ethics of legal conduct set forth by the state of Maine, and that conviction was overturned due directly to her prosecutorial misconduct. Later on, matter of fact, just last year, she was referred to the state Supreme Court by a three-member panel of the state Supreme Court for disciplinary action for all this misconduct. Meanwhile, keep in mind, Vladek Filler, again, was not her only victim. She's left a string of victims going back year after year after year of men who were prosecuted on nothing. There is a money connection to this called no-drop prosecutions. It's from VAWA funding. Oh, go figure that. Figure out that what happens is that the prosecutor's office gets paid on flimsy cases just by continuing to pursue them by any means necessary. So they're raking in money for doing this to people, right? You got to understand it. They always say follow the money. I'm saying it too. Follow the money. There is money in prosecuting rape cases so that prosecutors' offices can make more money. And that is exactly what they've been going after in Ellsworth, Maine, under Carletta Bassano's direction for a long, long time. Well, Vladek Filler eventually got his conviction overturned. They took up then a vengeful prosecution on him for assault for allegedly throwing water on his wife from a glass. She didn't bang her in the head, and there's no proof that he even threw water on her. But they managed, I think, out of a sort of a mercy conviction from the court.
Was there a risk of her melting from the water?
Yeah, I don't know. There may have been. It may have been recorded, but they probably deleted it if that did happen. But he was thrown in jail for 21 days for allegedly throwing some water on his wife, mind you.
And what did his incarceration just happen to coincide with?
Oh yes, it just happened to coincide with his bar complaint being heard, and they let him in. And I believe they let him in. I'm not even going to say that because I'm not 100% sure. he really worked hard, and this is a very gutsy guy. He worked hard to get in there and testify at the bar hearing and managed to get his testimony in. But they wanted to make sure that he had to do this while he was incarcerated. It was all just coincidence, though. So it was a vengeance and a tactical prosecution against him because he finally cleared himself of the rape charges, of the sexual assault charges, and he exposed the corruption that was going on in that office. And, you know, powerful people, they don't like that sort of thing very much. They have been very not happy ever since. Well, we want to make sure they get even unhappier in the future. As a matter of fact, all of this has raised a stink in that community in Maine. It has caused people in the community to become embarrassed at that office. It's caused people in the community to honestly be concerned about the corruption in that office. There is an attorney that is now running against the Ellsworth office. Carletta Bassano has wisely decided not to run in the upcoming election for DA after staining herself up with Mary Kellett's dirty name. But what they've done, as though they don't think this is transparent, is they've sent two cronies from the office, one a Republican, one a Democrat, so they can get one of those two people elected to take over that prosecutor's office. Then it's back to business as usual. I'll lay you dollars to donuts that Mary Bassano would end up working there as a senior ADA. One big family, happy family again, out there prosecuting everything in jeans and collecting VAWA money and business as usual in that corrupt little gang of misfits. Well, the publicity from this has damaged them. It's damaged them enough to keep Bassano out of the election, and it's damaged them enough that local political people are smelling blood in the water. Stephen Jeskovich, an attorney there who has spoken often and publicly about the corruption in that office, who has addressed the filler case and other cases at news conferences, is now running for DA. And part of his campaign slogan is that he knows what's wrong in that office and he knows how to fix it. I'm thinking that means fix it with a great big broom. To go in there and fire every last soul in that office. Get them all out. Get the whole thing, the whole corrupt crew cleaned out, and there's a possibility that this can happen. For that reason, I'm going to go to Maine on the 31st of next month, and I will be speaking alongside other local political figures and other officials yet to be named on the steps of the Ellsworth courthouse, just feet from Mary Kellett's and Carletta Bassano's office. And we're going to have a lot to say. We have invited media. I say we, this event has been sponsored by an organization called Integrity for Maine. You can find them on Facebook. There is a link to this story that I'm talking about in the low bar right now, and within that story is a link to Integrity for Maine. I urge you to go in there and give them a like on their Facebook page. Paste that Facebook page around, paste the article around, paste this video. Feel free to mirror this video, download it, slice this part out of it if you want to. But help us get the word out that on the 31st of next month, on Saturday, May the 31st, I believe it starts at 1 in the afternoon and goes for 3 hours. We're going to have several speakers, and there's going to be other people from AVFM there. And we are going to front and center call out the corruption that is happening in that county. We're going to call out the dirty, despicable prosecutors that have been going after innocent people and ruining their lives and ruining the lives of their children and putting children in the care of abusers and directly abusing children themselves by stealing fathers out of their lives that are innocent and throwing them behind bars. We have a chance here, and it may not be a huge one, but it is a real possible chance to step forward and just simply wipe out a whole corrupt crew in Ellsworth, Maine, and have some people come in there that will restore some sense of justice to that community. And it's about time for it to happen. So if you can show up in Ellsworth, be there. if you can show up in any way on the internet, on your blogs, whatever you've got, your YouTube channel, like I said, mirror this. If you write in your favorite forum, link to this. Please tell people about it and let them know that we're not going to stand silent anymore while this goes on. Bladdock Miller was exonerated. He is back with his children, and we're very thankful for that. But our business with Ellsworth is not done. We're not going to be done until Mary Kellett is out of a job, until Carletta Bassano is gone, until that whole disgusting, corrupt crew of liars and thieves has been pushed out of that office and some decent people can get in there and do business.
Don't forget about Paul Kavanaugh. His name is definitely worth mentioning.
Don't forget about Paul Kavanaugh. Yeah. And don't forget about Entwistle or any of the other jerks in that office that have been railroading people for years and slapping each other on the back over martinis after work as they ruin lives and ruin the lives of children. They're disgusting and they need to go.
Let me get a couple of things out real quick. The group you're looking for on Facebook is Integrity and the number 4 Maine. There's another group on there called Integrity Maine, which is about gay rights, which is, we got no problem with that, but Integrity, the number 4 Maine, is about this court corruption, so Integrity 4 Maine. And again, these people were caught fabricating evidence, hiding exculpatory evidence. Yes, the incumbent Bassano has decided not to run, but 2 of her cronies are each running for the Democratic and Republican nominations. We don't actually care that much about the guy that's running against them. We just want someone who's not them to win, because that office doesn't. That office is a stain on the state of Maine and the entire state of the entire United States. And so, yeah, if you can make it to the date, what's the date for that again, Paul?
It's the 31st, and let me reiterate what you said. That we're not, the AVFM does not endorse political candidates. There's no official endorsement for Jeskovich. But to let you know, there are Democrats and Republicans running in the primary, both against Mary Kellett, looking for a spot in there. Whatever your politics, you have a choice that is not named Entwistle or Kavanaugh, who are the 2 people from Bassano's office that are going in there to keep it business as usual. So any vote against them, we're not in. I mean, I like what Jeskovich has to say, and I like the fact that he's spoken out against this office before. But it's not like he's the only choice. You've got choices that don't involve these corrupt bastards and bitches that are running this office in Maine right now.
That's right.
Maine seems to be New England's answer to West Virginia.
Oh, no kidding. West Virginia is a very corrupt state on these issues. Maine is just, I mean, this is just jaw-dropping stuff. Go ahead and just look for the name Mary Kellett on A Voice for Men and start reading. It's jaw-dropping. She is so far as I know, Mary Kellett, Carletta Bassano's underling. So Carletta ultimately was watching all this. First one to be hauled up to the state Supreme Court for things that frankly ought to be putting her in jail, and all she got was a wrist slap. Everyone in that office needs to be fired. Everybody in that office needs to never work in law again. You people in Ellsworth, Maine have a chance to clean up your name. Do it. And if you can get up there to Maine to join Paul, please do so. Okay, we have been going a good 44 minutes now, so it's probably time to start wrapping things up. Paul, do you have any closing thoughts for us this week?
As always, I want to say that we. Oh, bless you, Dr. T. Whoa!
Wait, that was going to hell. No.
Allergies. Spring is in the air.
Again.
Yes.
As always, I want to say that the tickets are still on sale for the conference in Detroit on June 26th, 27th, and 28th. Keep in mind that the event on June 26th is a workshop by Dr. Warren Farrell, that is designed with the activists in mind. It covers a range of issues like the boy crisis and relationship with fathers. But what he is looking for in this is to make a personal connection with you as activists and to look at exploring ways of how we cope emotionally with the activism that we are immersed in. I will certainly be one of the people in the chairs there as an attendee, not as somebody putting on the workshop. I encourage you to look at those tickets. There is a banner at the very top of A Voice for Men that you can click on for the conference and go in and get your tickets, both for the conference proper on the 27th and 28th, and for Dr. Farrell's workshop on the 26th. There is 2 other spots on the front page of A Voice for Men that lead you directly to the same page. So if you have any questions, you can write me at paul@avoiceformen.com. We would like to see this thing sell out. We are committed to it happening. We're going forward. We're going to see you there. You will be seeing Dr. T speak and myself and Barbara Kay and Warren Farrell and Aaron Pitsey and any number of other people. There is a list on the links that I described of all the speakers. Also, starting in the next day or two, one of the things I'm going to do to promote the event is that I'm going to run a daily profile of each speaker that will be present at the event with their history, what they've done, what they bring to the table, that will also contain your option to get tickets and to book rooms at a discounted rate for the conference. So start looking for that in the days ahead. At A Voice for Men, we'll be profiling each one of the speakers and showing you just how remarkable this conference is going to be and why you should show up.
All right, excellent. I can hardly wait myself. Dr. T, any closing thoughts for us this week?
No, I just want to go take an allergy pill.
I hear you. All right, as per usual, if you are in an abusive relationship with a woman or think you might be, please seek the services of Shrink4Men.com, run by the amazing Dr. Tara Palmatier. If you are interested in men's and boys' issues in general, advocacy work, and the kind of things that are going on in men's rights circles, growing so fast, it's getting to where it's like drinking from a fire hose. It really is. Please visit the front page of avoiceformen.com. And otherwise, we will see you next week. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.